Hello, my friends. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me here today. Today, we're going to talk about something that I feel like is very important. The seed for our conversation today came from a conversation I was a part of on Sunday morning. And in this conversation, I was one of the older people. In the conversation, there were some beautiful young people. And what I heard the young people saying was, I can't seem to get my morning ritual right. I can't seem to get my morning practice going. And so what we're going to talk about today has to do with that, but is actually larger, and I hope it's really helpful. So the conversation was sort of a group of women, and especially the younger people being like, I'm trying to find my rhythm. I'm trying to find the way to have a reliable connection to spirit and have spiritual experiences. But I can't seem to get up extra early and do X, Y, and Z every single day. I can't seem to be consistent with it. And oh my gosh, I feel such compassion for these statements, and I also want to take everybody in my arms and be like, you don't have to. That's not the way. The way that it looks on the screen is not how it needs to be. So that's sort of what we're talking about today. And as I sort of teased apart what I wanted to say to them and what I want to say to all of us is that, each one of us can develop our ability to know what is a yes for us and what is a no for us. And what is a yes for us today may change over time and become a no later on, and vice versa. And I believe our two besties, when we are figuring out what is a yes for us and what is a no for us, is our sensorium, like our sensory, our beingness, and our intuition. So we're going to talk about how to bring those two online as we are faced with so many wonderful ideas coming to us online. So let's come right to the beginning of this, the genesis of this. Let's realize that for many, many, many thousands of years, if we wanted to have a spiritual practice or a spiritual experience, it was generally and most acceptably in the context of organized religion. For thousands of years, we have not been encouraged to develop our own practices, and therefore those muscles, the sensorium and the intuition, which tells us this is a yes for us and this is a no for us, they've atrophied, right? And at the same time, we now are so privileged and lucky to get to hear about so many different spiritual practices, right? I mean, I came of age before the internet, if you can believe that. And the way that I, as a seeker, would find spiritual information and the way that I would learn about how other people access spirit was I would go to used bookstores. And in these bookstores, I looked around until books sort of just jumped off the shelf into my hands, so to speak. And so then I would go home and I would read those books and I would take the information that I found in those books. So there was a lot of serendipity involved, there's a lot of synchronicity involved, and there was actually this treasure hunt feeling like, I know I'm seeking something. Let me go into this physical location, and of the things, the objects, the books that are available to me here, I'm gonna pull out the right information from this space. Now, we have the internet now, so we don't need to go to the bookstore if we don't want to. And more to the point, we can actually have perhaps thousands of things suggested to us. And I would argue, as much as I love books, I think things that come through the screen are like much more visceral, much more evocative, much more sort of influential than trying to learn practices from books, right? So we're very lucky. We have all these things to choose from. It's almost like a buffet of food with so many items on it, you can't even believe it. And that can be confusing, right? Because no person, no matter how much space they have in their life for their spiritual practices, can eat all those things on the buffet or eat them all every day, right? And then there's something else going on here as well that I just really want to highlight. And that is this. If you're watching this, I imagine in some way or another, you've made content for a social media app or for the internet in general. And you know, as I do, that when we make content, it is like one step removed from the actual thing. And what I mean by that is, if you are watching someone who's showing you their morning routine, they are showing you a curated version of it. They are maybe putting a filter on it. They are maybe bringing out some extra little things to make it extra beautiful. They are maybe showing you the morning practice, for instance, they wish they had. And so there's these two things of like, there's so much, and we're so fortunate to have the freedom to explore it all. And that's what it is, an exploration. And the things that we're seeing are curated. People are doing things on purpose, right? To make a really beautiful picture or video or message. So knowing that, it becomes very, very critical that we develop our own yes and no. And again, this happens through taking information from all our senses, our beingness, taking that information in, and also taking in information from our intuition. So there's an old saying, I think it's Buddhist in its origin, that do not mistake the finger pointing at the moon for the moon, okay? And I think that can be a really useful idea when we start to look at, okay, so TikTok is feeding me morning routine after morning routine, each one more beautiful and elaborate and like looks like in the screen like it feels so good. Let's not mistake that for a morning routine that actually feels good, and especially a morning routine that feels good for us, that fits us. For example, I'll share some little tidbits from my own life. I had always had this idea when I was in my 20s that like my morning practices had to happen right when I woke up. Well, I live with my family, and actually over the years I've come to realize that the best thing for me to do when I wake up is to connect with the people and animals that live in my house, and to connect with the plants outside by giving them water or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that you should connect with the people, animals, and plants at your house every morning, that would be the best start to your morning practice, but I can tell you it's the best start for me, for mine, even though that's not the general wisdom, okay? So we don't want to assume that what we're seeing of someone's, say, morning routine on TikTok is the morning routine that will feel right to us, or even we don't even know how it feels to them. Okay, we all, as we make content, including this content I'm making for you right now, we all have motivations, right? Why we do it. We all have reasons why we're doing this, and so I just don't want us to see someone else's morning routine, try to apply that or like overlay that over our own life, and then it doesn't feel right, or we can't sustain it, or we can't be consistent with it, which was a lot of this sort of conversation that I heard on Sunday of like, oh, I can do it for a few days, but then I can't sustain it. I don't continue. I'm not good at it. And it's like, I don't want us to think that, okay? This whole process of learning about things and then doing them and trying them on is a journey. That is the whole point of it. It is not one perfect morning practice and then you ascend to heaven and like that's it for you, right? So we really want to not let the things that we see spiritually on the screen make us think that we're not doing a good job in our spiritual evolution. If it doesn't look like that, or if we can't, like, I don't want somebody else's breakfast that they make, right? I want my own breakfast. And let's say that I'm the type of person, I don't like breakfast food. That's not true, but let's just say that. So am I going to force myself to eat eggs and pancakes when really what I want is, some pasta? Like, that doesn't make any sense when we think of it in terms of food. We can also see that in terms of food, if we go back to the buffet analogy, if there's 100 things on the buffet, I'm a fool if I'm gonna eat all those things in one morning and then be like, I don't wanna eat all those things tomorrow morning. Well, then I'm doing eating wrong, right? So I think food is a good analogy for this. It's like there's so much on display, there's so much offered to us, but that doesn't mean you have to eat every single thing in the same way as everybody else is, or in the same way that someone's acting perhaps like they are. And here's another countercultural idea. What if your morning routine, for example, just needs to consist of one thing? Again, someone who's showing you on TikTok their morning routine is showing you a lot of different things to show you like the most elaborate version of this. But we know that often it is the edited, the pared down, the singular spiritual practice repeated over and over again that brings us what the TikTok morning routine promises us, but perhaps does not deliver. We want our spiritual practices to be things we come back to again and again and again, that are easy for us to show up for, that give us what we're looking for. And we don't want something that's so complex and complicated that it becomes another way to judge ourselves. If you're a seeker like me, if you're interested in wellness on all levels, it's highly likely that you understand that there are things that can be improved. And I just don't want us to be really hard on ourselves as we begin to put together tools that work for us, right? You don't want somebody else's breakfast. You want your own breakfast. And that's what I want for you too. So how do we do this? How do we find out what our yeses and nos are? Well, we consult, right? I believe we feed our intuition by consulting it often, right? And sometimes it can be easier to do that with small things. Like, for instance, I have a little, let's stay on the food metaphor. I have a little bin of food in my refrigerator. And this little clear bin has all the different fruits, right? Right now, I think I have some strawberries, some pears, white peaches, yellow peaches, and plums, right? So a good little experiment for yeses and nos for me is to stick my hand in there over different fruits and be like, yes or no. Body, tell me yes or no, right? Body, want this? No? This? No? This? Yes. Okay, great. That's what I'm going to eat. And it's not that it's so critical or important that I have a peach or a plum today. It is more that every time we practice that, every time we ask our intuition, we ask our sensorium, our beingness, this or that, and we get an answer and we follow what the sensorium or the intuition says, every time we do that, that's feeding our knowingness. That's feeding our intuition. And so then when we get to something big, something really important, our intuition and my intuition and me, we have a good relationship. So it's very clear to me what to do and what is a no for me, right? Does that make sense? So we can always say, body, show me what yes feels like. Body, show me what no feels like. Intuition, show me what yes feels like. Intuition, show me what no feels like. Or spirit, spirit, show me what yes feels like. Spirit, show me what no feels like. Is this for me right now or is it not? And we don't have to make up a big story about it afterwards. Let's just trust and move on, trust and move on. And you know, I feel so lucky that we have these screens, which are really magical objects where tons of spiritual information is able to flow. And I feel lucky that you and I have the freedom to explore. And also it requires that we be discerning. And discerning means, is this for me or is it not? Right? Yes or no. So that's my little talk for you today. I invite you to take these ideas and ask, Is this a yes for me or a no? Should I be just following along on someone's TikTok morning routine? Maybe you should. Maybe you should. Should I not? Maybe you shouldn't, right? The point is that each of us has these profound holographic inner compasses that do know. And I just want to encourage us all to enjoy whatever we're enjoying from the screens, to enjoy following whoever we're following, on the social media, on the internet, and be grateful for all the information that's coming in, and also having that image of a buffet. We don't need to eat 100 things every morning to evolve and have a spiritual practice, right? We don't. We know we don't, right? And sometimes just letting one thing or perhaps two things be enough, and then we can easily show up for them over and over again. And remembering that the way that we nourish and feed and sustain that holographic compass inside us is by using it. It loves to be used. It loves to be consulted. And the more we do, in my experience, the better things get. But test that out for yourself. So much love. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you around.